We've all heard of the gig economy. There are millions of people in today's world who earn a living as a freelancer. And a good portion of these freelancers are enabled through online platforms, both in finding gigs as well as learning new skills. In today's episode, we chat with Matt Cooper, the CEO of Skillshare, which is an online learning community for people working in the creative field, from design to illustration to photography and beyond. Over 9 million users are on Skillshare, and according to Matt, they are only beginning to scratch the surface of what the platform could become. Some estimates place the global creative market at $2 trillion, and in the US alone, $700 billion. Matt has extensive experience in building and leading companies enabling the gig economy. He shares with us his insights into the growing community on Skillshare, as well as his keys to success in leading an organization. We hope you enjoy the show. Matt, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Maybe what we could do to kick off is just hear a little bit about yourself and your background. You have a really good experience with companies that cater to the freelance community. So maybe we could hear a bit about your background, and then we'll head into freelancers as well as what you're doing with Skillshare.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Appreciate you having me. So quick background. I started out my career in investment banking. So I was at JP Morgan for 4 years doing telecom media technology banking. Decided I had had enough of the 80, 90-hour weeks and moved out to California with my then girlfriend, now wife, and learned that being an unemployed telecom banker in Silicon Valley in 2002 was not a great position to be in. And so my dreams of a private equity job died quickly, and I ended up just through the course of networking kind of getting into the whole startup scene. So my first true startup, I went to work for a guy who was running a outsourced recruiting business, had a great run from 2003, then 2008 hit, and all of a sudden selling recruiting services to venture-backed startups was not such a great market. So learned a lot on the way up and a lot on the way down, and then went to Odesk, which is now Upwork. And my role there ran operations or customer service, trust and safety, but then kind of as an offshoot of customer service, ended up building out the enterprise business, which started at zero, and by the time I left was about $100 million top line business. So just had a phenomenal 5-year run at Odesk, Upwork. Then left to be the CEO of Visually, which was a similar model to what we were doing on the enterprise side at Odesk, where we had a freelance back end of designers, animators, engineers that we would package together to do visual content work for big brands and agencies. So kind of continuing on that, gig economy, freelance economy theme. That was a bit of a turnaround situation. So we got Visually sort of cleaned up, sold it in 2016, and then I joined Skillshare as the COO originally in November 2016, and then took on the CEO role about a year later.
Great. And, this is a fascinating area. I guess the internet has really enabled, both small and medium-sized businesses as well as large businesses to recruit, talent from almost anywhere in the world. Is that the case with kind of these various platforms? I know Upwork has a fair amount of kind of talent that you can recruit abroad. Was that the same as Visually and as well as now at Skillshare?
Yeah, that is sort of a common thread running through all those businesses. Just the access to talent that you can now have is pretty amazing. And again, it doesn't even have to be offshore. If you're a company sitting in New York and you can hire someone in Memphis or in Salt Lake City, just not being bound to the talent that happens to be within commuting distance of your head office. It's changed a lot of businesses, and particularly on the Upwork side of things, just seeing not only how it impacted the freelancers and their access to amazing job opportunities, no matter where they happen to sit, but also seeing the small businesses who were using that access to talent to do things that they just could never have done otherwise. And sort of carrying through today at Skillshare, seeing the teachers and the experts from all over the world. So we've got about 8,000 teachers. 60% of them are outside of the U.S. and seeing them share their expertise and be able to monetize that expertise. And similarly, as a student, doesn't matter where you're sitting, you can now learn from experts wherever they happen to be. So, whether that talent is in kind of a traditional employment relationship or it's more of a information sharing, it's a pretty amazing thing for both sides of the equation.
And now, I guess focusing on Skillshare, you mentioned there's kind of teachers all over the world. Who is the I guess the primary consumer or student or learner? I'm not sure what the term you use, but who's the kind of target customer here?
Yeah, so most of our content focuses on creative skills. So design, illustration, photography, painting. And so you can kind of think of our core users, about half of them are coming for professional reasons. So they are designers or illustrators or animators who are trying to stay current, learn new skills, learn the latest software, or cross-train in other areas of expertise. Or it's more of a passion project. So they like to do watercolor, they like to do digital photography, they like to sketch for fun. So it's roughly split between professional and passion. So it is a global community. So again, we've got the 8,000 teachers. We've got over 9 million registered users on the platform. 62% of all new users coming onto the platform are outside the U.S. So you can kind of think of the professional side, the stereotypical 28-year-old freelance designer. About 80% of our teachers are freelancers, 50% of our students are freelancers. And then on the personal side, doesn't really matter what your day job is, you just happen to love to do watercolor or digital photography.
And so I guess is the idea that these freelancers, maybe they've always been a freelancer, or maybe they left their day job, or maybe they're doing this as a side hustle, but they learn a new skill that they're passionate about, and then they perhaps go on a platform and then sell their skills to another business.
That's right. Yeah, and what we hear when we talk to kind of on the professional side of the equation, when you're a freelancer, particularly if you're working remotely or you're working from home, you don't have the same cross-pollination that you would have in a traditional office. So if you're working at a big company and there are 30 other designers that are working and eating and hanging out around you, you pick things up through osmosis that you don't have when you're working in your basement. So for us, being able to provide a community of experts around those skills, it just gives them a way to pick up what's hot, what's new, what's cutting edge, again, that normally they wouldn't have access to in their particular geography.
9 million is 9 million users is a big number. How much room is there, do you think, to run?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we think it's huge. I mean, we think we're just scratching the surface. The demand for creative skills, both again personally and professionally, is massive and growing. Some of the market research statistics that we have say the creative industry globally is a $2 trillion market. Just in the U.S. alone, the creative economy is more than $700 billion, and something like 75% of all Americans have a creative hobby. So I think there's just an overall shift in focus, again, both professionally and just from a mental wellness and personal health, on creative skills. When you think about all of the trends towards automation and, ultimately creativity is going to be the hardest thing to automate. So that those skills and that expertise is going to carry a premium in the years to come.
And is there, maybe one or two classes that it has gone, viral, so to speak? Does there tend to be like a very popular segment, or even one teacher in particular?
Yeah. So overall, the highest highest number of minutes watched is typically in design, illustration, and then fine arts, particularly watercolor. So one of our more popular teachers is Aaron Draplin. He's a graphic designer that does a lot of great work around logos. So he's done logos for Obama and Nike, and he's just done some amazing things. And he's just a very funny, entertaining personality. I mean, I say if we put up a class of Aaron Draplin brushing his teeth, people would watch it. But then also we launched our second class with Thomas Frank, who's a productivity guru, has a big YouTube following. His class on Skillshare has been our single highest performing class of all time. So he's done some amazing things. And then there's a woman named Jessica Hish who specializes in illustration and particularly hand lettering. And she's extremely popular, does some amazing work. So we definitely, we have some teachers who kind of had a following outside of Skillshare and have brought that community onto Skillshare. And then we have other teachers who have developed that following and that brand recognition because of their Skillshare work. So it's really interesting to see kind of people rise up through the ranks and build a following of 50, 60,000 people on Skillshare.
So is there something unique in the way you frame out your classes where a viewer couldn't get the same type of instruction from YouTube?
I think what we hear about YouTube, I mean, YouTube is interesting because in theory it's our biggest competition, but it's also our number one source of new users. So we do a lot of influencer marketing on YouTube, and that is literally the number one source for us. And I think what we hear, YouTube has some great content, but the signal to noise ratio is off. And it's not optimized for online learning, it's optimized for entertainment. So we have very strict quality control guidelines. So the content that you're going to see on Skillshare is good. It's high quality. The audio is good. The video is good. It is structured specifically for online learning. So each class is broken into sort of 5 to 10 minute lessons. And then there's a project component to every class. So we want people to watch the class, but then actually produce a project, upload it, get feedback from the teachers, get feedback from students. And the act of they're just putting something out there, even if it's not very good, that's ultimately how you get good at things, is just by getting reps in. So we want our users to actually put that knowledge to work.
And are the teachers do they have an incentive, I presume, to to recruit or attract more viewers? How does it work on the, I guess on both sides? I presume there's a subscription component here.
Yeah, so on the student side, it's subscription. So it's either in the U.S., it's either $99 a year or $19 a month, and then you get access to all 20,000 classes that we have. On the teacher side, it's a similar payout model to Spotify. So we take a percentage of our revenue that goes into a royalty pool that gets divided across the teachers based on their share of the minutes watched in that month. So if you have a hit class and you get a lot of minutes and a lot of eyeballs, then you're going to make a lot of money. And then we also pay teachers when they refer students to the platform. So our top teacher last month made about $57,000 just last month. So there are some teachers doing quite well on Skillshare.
That's phenomenal. I guess you could draw a comparison to how Netflix works. If you have a bunch of users that are paying that monthly fee, if you can continually load good content onto the platform, then they'll stay on. Do you look at it that way at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the sort of clear signals of retention, is when your favorite teacher launches a new class, you're going to stick around to watch that class. So as we see we have a virtuous cycle now on the supply side, where our teachers, the teachers who create good content, because our revenue growth has been so significant, our teacher earnings have been rising. They're earning more money, which incentivizes them to produce more and better content. It provides a better incentive for new teachers to come on and teach. So we get all the content we can handle coming in organically through our teacher community. And the best teachers do quite well. So it's a very healthy platform dynamic, which is always what you're looking for in these types of businesses.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I guess I know this is geared more, all towards the creative side, but say there's an art teacher out there working at a, elementary school. Could they, try to supplement their income by, learning how to, be a, productive teacher on your platform?
Absolutely, and we see a lot of that. A lot of our teachers are, again, either consultants or they're professors, or they're local teachers, for many of them, we sort of are taking the place of that, teaching job at the local community college. We're just now giving them a global audience to pursue.
And do you think they're going to be expanding beyond kind of the types of classes you have currently, or do you go kind of deeper into subsegments?
It's a little bit of both. The beauty of the open platform and having 8,000 teachers out there is they are constantly looking at what's hot, what's new, the new software that's coming up, the new technologies, the new techniques. And you also get some interesting geographic cross-pollination. The style that's hot in Japan may be very different than what's going on in Croatia. So I think having that broad swath of experts out there constantly thinking about what's hot and new and what our audience might be interested in, we get to spot a lot of the trends that are coming out of that community, and that keeps our content fresh and interesting and gives us a depth and breadth of content that would be really hard for us to keep up with if we were just purely producing it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we touched on this earlier with regards to how much room you have to run, but are there parallels I guess you could draw to maybe other companies who've been in a similar a similar space of how they've been able to expand, like how I know we say it's enormous, but how would you quantify where you think you could be, call it 5-10 years out?
Yeah, there are some really large and interesting businesses that have been built based on a creative focus. Adobe immediately comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
About 30% of the classes on the platform are either about an Adobe product or an Adobe product is used in the class. So a lot of overlap with their audience. Etsy's done very well. Canva is another, they're still private, but they've done quite well. Just raised money at a massive valuation. Shutterstock. So there's a pretty long list. Apple was originally focused on creative. So I think there's a pretty long list of companies that have been built, amazing markets and technologies and user bases around a creative focus.
Got it. And then switching gears a little bit here to the kind of leadership side, notice that the company is growing nicely. You have a tremendous number of users and on both sides. And I think you're about 100 employees now. Is that right?
Yeah, just coming up on 100. Yeah.
And so you're able to kind of produce quite a bit from this kind of core team of about 100. How do you and you're the right person to ask here because you've been through various key roles within organizations. But how do you think about I guess motivating your team or just ensuring that you're on the right path and everyone's producing?
Yeah, we obviously talk and think and evolve kind of our corporate values and how we approach that day to day. It really does come from the top down, and I've worked very hard over the last couple of years to get an executive team in place that not only does their job well but does it the right way. And I've had to make some hard decisions on some people who were very effective in their roles but didn't represent the culture that I wanted to build and how I wanted the company to run. And yes, our values: transparency, community, curiosity, and impact. And for me, I'll just highlight the two that I think are probably most relevant to this conversation. Transparency is just very important. I think what you see is what you get. No politics, no BS. We share as much information with the companies as we can, and that comes with an expectation that our employees have the understanding and maturity to handle that information. It's not fair for me to expect them to grab a bucket when something's on fire if I don't tell them where it is or what to do about it. And then the impact is something we really focus on, not just in your day job, but We think that this is one of the rare businesses that is both a really strong there's a really strong economic engine that drives our business. I think it's one of the better business models I've seen. But then when you look at the actual user stories and you look at what people are able to do with what they learn or with the money that they earn, and again, whether that's a profession or passion, like there's just a very tangible impact on people's lives. And the anecdotes and the stories that we hear, I talk to 2 students and 2 teachers every week, and the things that I hear back are just unbelievable. And I think that's hard to find. And so we try to keep those stories and those anecdotes of how we've impacted someone's life, day to day. We try to keep those stories front and center.
And I believe you have a portion of your employee base that works remotely.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, I guess, manage? Is there a difference in the way you manage kind of your remote team versus your on-site team?
There's definitely some nuance in what you have to do day to day to make sure they feel included and communicated with, and they can communicate with us. And this is some of the muscle memory that I bring from working at Upwork, where we had roughly 3 times the number of remote employees as we had working on site in our San Francisco office. So there's infrastructure things, just having good telecom equipment, having good video equipment, being able to hear. I mean, can't hear, it's kind of hard to feel included. So we've done a lot there to make it just easier for us to work with a distributed team. But then just little things of, when we do our weekly town hall meetings, they got video access, they can see everybody. Sometimes we'll do lunch in one of the conference rooms, and anybody who's remote can log into the video conference, and everybody sits and has lunch together. So, and then we fly people in at least twice a year so that they can attend big meetings or our quarterly kickoff meetings or the holiday party. So, it does take more work to have a distributed team, and there are some routines and habits that you have to build to make that effective. But it's definitely worth it because you end up with just a much more diverse team, a lot of different viewpoints, different ways of looking at the world. If we're trying to build a global business for global users, we can't have everybody living in a 1-mile radius of Williamsburg and Brooklyn.
And do you have some idea of what the right proportion is? Do you generally like to keep it, keep the on-site segment at a certain, percentage range?
No, I mean, we've shifted over time. And when I started, we had 0 distributed team, or maybe 1 or 2, and now we're up to 25% of the team is distributed. And then, there are companies that have done very, very well that are 100% distributed. So I think you just have to adapt your style depending on what your mix is. In some ways, I think it's harder to have a mix. If everybody's distributed, it kind of levels the playing field. If everybody's local, then you don't have to worry about discrepancies. So when you're somewhere in between, I think you just have to be hyper vigilant that those remote team members feel like they're just as much a part of the team as everyone else.
Got it. Super helpful. And then I guess what are a couple key tenets that you like to keep in mind as you lead an organization? I mean, you had mentioned some of these things you pay close attention to with transparency. Are there kind of some overriding things that help guide you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, we've really tried to align all of those things around the values. And getting values right is hard, and it's not an exact science. And there's always a combination of, these values we absolutely deliver on every day, and then sometimes it's a little more aspirational, and there are things you need to work on, and you don't always get it right. But I think just keeping those front and center, again, like for us, it's the transparency, community, curiosity, and impact. The community, that's our version of teamwork, having a one team mindset. The company's goals come before the departmental goals, which come before the individual goals. And if we're all aligned that every now and then one team is going to have to scrap the plans that they had laid out because we need to shift resources to something that's more important for the company's success, we're going to do that without hesitation, and it's great. It's a good thing. The curiosity, you look at our business, we need lifelong learners. We need people who are open-minded, who are not just open to feedback, but actively seeking it and sort of proactively walking in other people's and other teams' shoes, and then really honing in on that impact of what we're doing every day. And particularly in startup land, we are you never have enough time, money, or people. You're always strapped for resources. There's always more that you want to do than you can get to. So we have to think really hard about where we're putting our time, where we're putting our resources. And, we just, as a company, we try to run very lean and run very efficient. And we don't want to be cheap. Nobody wants to work for a cheap company, but we just want to be very deliberate about where we put our time and money. And, there are times when we're going to be scrappy. The running joke is that I'm the AV guy because I know how to fix all the audio visual equipment. But obviously that's not always the best and highest use of my time, but sometimes things just got to get done. So I think we try to find the right balance between being scrappy and lean, but then being willing to make investments in the right areas, take bets when we feel like it's the right thing for the business. And, you win some, you lose some, you learn from it, and you move on.
Well, Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time here. You've been generous with your time spending it with us. So appreciate it, and congrats on all the success to date.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.